So the pathway is self-awareness. So self-awareness, Netta, is the door. There's three pillars on the self-awareness. As you start to see your perfection, that is when you become most empowered. And as you start to invite that in and wrap your arms around that person, the universe, divinity, life, God starts to shine more upon you. I am capable of this. I'm excited about it. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. And yet again, we have an amazing guest with us this week. Howard, thank you so much for joining the Rise Up For You podcast.
Thank you so much, Netta, for having me on. Excited to talk to you today.
Great. So I always like to start off the show by letting the audience get to know our guest. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do in your own words.
Sure. The very, very short story is 24 years ago, I went through an amazing expansion of mind and awareness while I was in the middle of working in the finance business. It was so profound and so amazing of a shift of insight, and provided so much wisdom that I knew my life had changed dramatically in that moment, and that I was here to just be a humble servant to be able to share this wisdom with whoever was interested in it. So I left my job and I went to write my first book, which was titled I Am. It got picked up by a major publisher. I went and taught and spoke around the world and started helping people in all aspects of the mind and life, and showing them how connected their mind is and their mindset is to what unfolds for them. Basically, the tenets of creation. It was really exciting, really powerful. And then life gave me another little bit of a turn as I started getting calls from athletes around the world who had read the book and said, "Hey, I read your book. This is what happened to my performance. Do you work with athletes?" I jumped into that field and started working in professional sports, which was an easy transition for me, having grown up playing all sports, and started working with athletes, and a bunch of miracles happened with their performance. I went on to write a second book called Time in a Bottle, continued to do the work, and then it's been an incredible path to this moment, teaching people some of the fundamental tenets of truly how you change your experience of life from this moment forward. And then my most recent book came out about 8 months ago called Invincible, The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success, where I took 20 years of the work, put it into a formula that people could go step by step to expand their mindset and elevate the way that they work, go into the world, and share their energy.
Yeah, I love that. So let's go all the way back for a second. So you mentioned that you were in the financial sector and then you had this awakening and something happened with you that changed your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Can you dive into that story? What was the epiphany? How did that shift happen?
So this really started when I was 14 and I was on a camping trip. I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and I was taken to the north woods of Minnesota near the Canadian border. We got up there at night. Everybody put their stuff away, unpacked. I wanted to check out the surroundings. I walked out of this cabin, which was sitting on a lake. It was like out of a movie, this rustic cabin. I went to the end of the dock and just stared into the darkness. I'd never experienced that kind of silence and that kind of darkness. But Netta, what really caught me was when I looked up. I could not believe the amount of stars that were above my head. And it literally and physically blew my mind to the point where thousands of questions were birthed, existential questions on how does that sit above our head every night? So this was the catalyst that started me on this curiosity journey to understand more of how this all works and what we're all doing there. And I went through, I would say, an ordinary life. My parents got divorced in my teens. I left home to go to school out west, Arizona, to go to school, to go to college. I got married in my 20s, had kids. So I was going through a normal life, but in the back of my mind, I had this insatiable desire to try and understand more about the nature of existence. So at 35, it all sort of came together, where in one instant, what I knew about life shifted, and it shifted upon a couple dominoes falling. One of the biggest ones was the realization, because I was very tough on myself. I had carried a lot of regrets, a lot of guilt. I should have done this. I could have done this. I would have done this. And when I realized that in every moment of my life, I have done the best that I can up until that moment with the consciousness that I had and the understanding that I had, that doesn't mean I can't do better. Doesn't mean I condone things, want them to happen again. But when I realized that I have done the best I could have for those moments, it lifted this burden. When this burden lifted, all this contempt and regret I had for myself disappeared. And in that space was left to be filled with self-appreciation and self-love. And when that rushed in, then I was able to receive more of these understandings that lifted my sense of self and expanded the possibilities for what I could do. So it was like I unlocked the key code to how you allow reality to work with you in a more magnified way.
Yeah, it's I really like that you said self-appreciation and self-love, because a lot of times we forget that that is really the first place we have to start. We don't have the capacity to recognize, or I would say be present enough to even have the curiosity that you have without that self-appreciation and self-love. It often hinders our ability to see, right, through
Yes.
certain narrative. And so we talk a lot about self-confidence here at Rise Up for You, and how the belief in yourself and the belief that you can grow and the belief that you can learn and that you are enough simply because your existence and not all the accolades that you had. That's the first pillar that we talk about, because we understand that you need that in order to be able to evolve in any other aspect of your life.
Correct.
So talk to us a little bit. I'm gonna pivot here for a second. I want to come back to the work that you're doing, but for anyone that's listening, how do you get to that place of self-appreciation and self-love? Because I can tell you it is the greatest tragedy we see today with professionals. I mean, every day, I mean, you work with athletes and professionals as well. Every day we see amazing people that are super talented, that are gifted, that no matter how much success they build, they still don't feel enough. They still struggle with self compassion and self efficacy. And it's this cycle that consistently they're just beating themselves up. How, if you were to talk to the audience right now, how would you help them kind of navigate that?
So the pathway is self awareness, because through self awareness, you understand the wiring that's prevented you from that self love. You also understand how to dissolve any limiting beliefs or blocks that have kept you from that self love. And if you have a strong enough will and you're willing to be vulnerable enough through the power of that will, then you will reflect enough to see that nothing in your past is your fault. That doesn't mean you don't have to take responsibility for what happened, but it's really important to understand that you have operated in every moment out of the best you could have for your survival, based on what you knew and understood, based on how your identity was constructed, based on the traumas that you went through as a child, based on what worked for you in the past. Now, it might have created a whole bunch of negative things in your life and some karma and some suffering. But the point is, you made those choices at a time when you thought those were the best ones for your survival. And they may not have been right morally. They may not have been right religiously. If you're someone who's deep in religion, they may not have been right for your relationship or business. But that's how you did them. The most exciting thing that I realized through this journey is that in every single moment, we have the opportunity to turn it all around. That is our greatest gift. We get to redefine ourselves in this moment. But to do that, you have to see who you've been before you can see who you desire to be right now. You have to see the contrast. So self-awareness, Netta, is the door.
Yeah.
There's three pillars on the self-awareness and how it's built. It's built through your nurturing, going all the way back to how long it took you to cry before you were picked up and fed or changed from the crib. Your brain connected how much fear, how much faith you have in life based on how long that happens and what you have to do to get attention. You might have to cry a little louder in the world to get attention. That may have set in your mind. So you may have looked for negative attention. Your personal experiences is number two, how people interacted with you and told you who you are or who you were. So all the traumas, things you experienced, negative things people said to you. And then the sneakiest pillar of all, the one that has an effect on us that most people don't even realize, are our genetics, how past generations have learned to survive and how they've passed those survival skills into our genetics. So if somebody's mother or father was an alcoholic and that's what they used to survive life, that seed is implanted in an individual for the potential that they could use alcohol much easier than somebody else for survival. Now, does it work long term? No. Does it have negative effects on someone's life? Yes. So, but the exciting thing of all three of those pillars that have developed an identity that have created your life up until this point is that you can become aware of all of them, and you can begin through conscious awareness of who you want to be to redirect and begin to change that identity. You can change your genetics. The field of epigenetics has proven that. The switches on the genes can change through consciousness and environmental stimulation, but you have to be aware and you have to be strong enough in the new identity that says, that's not who I am anymore. This is who I am. And you begin, they say, neuroplasticity of rewiring the brain. But those are the three pillars. And as you understand that through self-awareness, and you start to see more of the truth of who you are, and you start to see more of your infinite potential, and I'm going to say a word that may cause people to recoil, but this is the big one in the book, and that's been taught from thousands of years from every great teacher. As you start to see your perfection, that is when you become most empowered. And I want to be clear that perfection does not mean better than anybody else, worse than everybody else. It just means your moment by moment beauty and perfection of who you are as a human being going through this journey. And as you start to invite that in and wrap your arms around that person, the universe, divinity, life, God starts to shine more upon you. There's a flow that you enter of life, and it is really sacred and really beautiful.
So thank you for sharing all that. And you're speaking our language, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, all those things are skills that we think we don't need or that we haven't been taught throughout our life that actually really contribute to most of our success. My question for you is, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. Those that are listening that are, the corporate professional that are just hustle and grind, I do, and they've just kind of moving through life and they listen and they think, oh, this is so woohoo. But you and I know that this is really actually critical. How do you encourage or even influence somebody to build self-awareness? Where do they even start? So when you say build self-awareness, somebody listening might say, well, what do I do? What's the first step to doing that? Do I sit in silence? Do I journal? What does that look like? Did you know that 95% of leaders think they're self-aware, but only 10% actually are? So let me ask you, do you know where your two strengths and gaps are when it comes to the skills that matter most? Well, at riseofree.com, we have built a number of free tools and resources to give you instant answers. Free tools around self-confidence, emotional intelligence, multiple quizzes that you can take right now to figure out where you stand today and how to get to where you want to go tomorrow. These aren't just quick checklists. These are actual tools that we've used around the world with our clients, both big organizations from Fortune 5 to entrepreneurs or individuals just like yourself. So head over to riseofree.com. Don't waste any more time. Click on the free tab resources button up on the top and grab a hold of all of the free resources you can today. Quiz your self-confidence, quiz your emotional intelligence, and find out how you can be the best version because the world needs you now more than ever.
So ironically, just because the way it's set up, the book is set up in steps. There's 8 steps in the book that show you how to keep doing that in Invincible. But I would say that the first step is to establish to yourself, what is your intent? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you want to perform better at work? Do you want better relationships with your clients? Do you want your clients to say yes to you more and work with you and like you and say, you know what, I want to work with this guy. You want to be in the flow with them and magnetize what you're looking for out of them for your business relationship or your personal relationship? Do you want peace of mind? Do you want to walk around feeling good about who you are every day rather than feeling bad and feeling down and feeling low? So you have to ask yourself, what are these intentions? If the intentions to these are, yes, I would like those things to change, then that will be a catalyst for you to say, okay, where do I need to look as far as how I look at what's possible? Do I see what's possible in the world for me? When I ask people, when I do seminars or when I do speeches or individual talks, I say, what do you believe is possible in the world? And they're like, well, anything. I'm like, oh, cool. What do you believe is possible for you in the world? Well, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden there's a limit there. The job of the individual on the path of self-awareness is to find out why there's a limit, why you hesitate upon the idea of a loving, intimate, amazing, special relationship, someone who adores you and fawns on you. Why do you recoil from that? When you think about getting $1 million contract or selling millions of dollars of product or getting a raise or running the organization, why do you recoil from that? Why do you say, well, I'm happy where I'm at right now and I'll just move up slowly? Why do you not believe you're capable of doing more? Well, I was never taught that I could run people, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't believe in so you'll surface those beliefs. Then you can, once you at least know the belief that's been holding you back and creating the perfection of where you're at right now, now you can say, you know what? That doesn't serve me anymore to believe that. I do believe I can step up and run this. I've watched enough people screw it up in this company. I know it better than anybody. I'm willing to go in and say, hey, you want to change things to my superiors? I've been here. I know what to do. Give me a shot at doing this. I can handle this, because you believe more in yourself, but it has to come internally authentically. And when I say authentically, that's where the work comes in. You have to have done it and said, you know what? I'm tired of this version of myself who's limited, not feeling good. I've learned through this work or other work that I've read or stuff that I've done that what the truth is about me, that I'm as worthy as anybody else and I'm capable. And so I'm no longer going to be bound by that limiting belief. I'm going to establish a new one. I am capable of this. I'm excited about it. Let's go. And that's, it's funny how this works with athletes, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. And that's where these breakthroughs and miracles have come through. They have seen more possibility. And all of a sudden, the ball that came off the hands now sticks and the catch is for a touchdown, or the putt that lipped out for a meaningful, significant jump in results goes in. It's amazing how metaphysical it really is when you look at life between our mind and reality. It's
100%.
yeah.
It's interesting, well, not interesting. I would say it's a testament that I've heard you say a few times that like you can change, right? And you and I know this from the neuroplasticity and your mind can be rewired. But I really like the emphasis around like in any single moment, you can shift yourself, you can change yourself. And I think that sometimes, even when we work with clients, they forget that, right? They think that they are just stuck in this situation and that there's no way out of it. And that's very disempowering. And so the more you say, like, hey, you can change your thoughts, you can change your beliefs, you can rewire the way that you think, you can shift your reality. Your identity is not determined by your past. That becomes a very, very empowering situation for somebody to then go and take action. And so many of us forget that.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the most exciting things about life is to know that in any moment, where's the power? It's in you by the renewal of, like, I guess, renewal of the spirit of your mind, understanding that you have the opportunity to decide, declare, and demonstrate who you want to be in this world. And when you're armed with insight and new information, that's truth that says to you, wow, I can see how I have a blank canvas now to rewrite who I want to be. It may be a little uncomfortable at first. I may have to take a few, some time to really embrace it and to really find out how deep some of these old beliefs have been. But I no longer want to be bound by that old version that has had me limited and given me limited results. I'm ready to get out of this endless cycle and get on a new path. And that's what every human being deserves. It's their destiny, really.
Yeah, I love that. So, Howard, you mentioned, building that self awareness first. That's really the first step. Asking yourself the question, what is your intent? What do you want out of this? Can you give us another one or two steps or strategies that we can take away today for anyone that's listening that really wants to begin this journey?
So again, looking at life from a perspective of unlimited possibilities versus limited possibilities and connecting yourself to believing that you are worthy. Once you go down this journey and you're willing to do the work of experiencing those possibilities, being willing to change how you look at who you are from a more empowered way and taking it, by the way, there's no pressure on time. You can do this in your time. You can go slow, you can go fast. The great thing about all of this work in this book is that it's up to you. You're in control of your life. You are controlling time. And then one of the great questions that I have in this book, and I have in my other two books, but I really profoundly focused on it in this book, and it's what I teach to entrepreneurs or athletes at the highest level, is to ask this really important question. When you are sitting around thinking about what you want out of your life from this moment forward, what you want to accomplish, what you want to do, what you believe you're capable of in the deepest part of who you are, what your deepest desires are in the deepest part of who you are, ask yourself this really important reflective question. Why not me? And see what comes up. That's a way of floating up some of these poisons maybe that have been in there. Remember the three poisons of the mind: guilt, shame, and regret. Past an initial reflection of who you don't want to be, carrying guilt, shame, or regret from something from the past is a poison because it limits the way you think about yourself. It limits the way life can come back to you with probabilities and possibilities. And it's just very corrosive. So to liberate your soul, not because you relinquish responsibility or the fact that you need to learn from it, you need to do those things, but you relinquish the poisonous idea that that's because that who you were has to be who you are. That is not the case. You get to decide who you are, and you can lay down the guilt, shame, and regret and say, that's who I was. That's not who I am anymore. And it doesn't matter who in your life believes you or accepts it, as long as you do and you act out of the new self.
Yeah.
So that's also part of the work, is to really dig into that and see the false nature of guilt, shame, and regret. Now, again, that doesn't mean you didn't do things that you don't want to do again. It doesn't mean people that were affected by that aren't going to have memories. They are, and they're going to treat you accordingly. But as long as you keep establishing that that's not who I am anymore, this is who I am, and keep showing it, life will eventually adapt to you and change.
Yeah, I love that. Howard, thank you so much for sharing with us. Really love the self-awareness, being able to shift yourself at any moment. I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview and ask you some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
If you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. What would your golden nugget be?
When you know how powerful you really are, you will never stop smiling.
And we're very big on values here at Rise Up For You. We believe that values really guide us in the direction that we're meant to go in when we honor them. What's one value for you that's a non-negotiable?
To leave everybody I meet with more love and feeling better than they did than before I met them.
Yeah. One more question for you, but before I ask, tell us a little bit about where we can find you, where we could find the book. If somebody wants to connect with you, what does that look like?
Sure. You can find me at howardfalco.com or totalmindsports.com, either one of those. And on Instagram under Howard Falco is where I share a lot of my work and wisdom. And then the book is called Invincible, which is right here: The Mindset of Infinite Potential and the Secret to Inevitable Success. And that can be found at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and everywhere books are sold that carry Simon and Schuster books
I
and
love
Ben
that.
Bella books.
Yes. Howard, thank you so much for joining us today. Final question. As you know, the company is called Rise Up for You. What does that mean to you when you hear that phrase?
Rise up for me means to heed the call when it comes into your life about being willing to open up to new wisdom that shows you more of the beautiful, magnificent truth of who you really are.
I love that. Howard, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up for You podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be on. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for joining the Rise Up for You podcast. Again, this is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. Every single week, we are bringing you brand new episodes from around the world, leaders, experts, entrepreneurs that are coming together to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to share to help you become your absolute best. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. You know, every episode is designed to give you practical tools and strategies on success, entrepreneurship, leadership, and so much more. You know, the skills that actually help you be seen, be heard, and be relevant. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and any podcast platform, your favorite, so that you can catch weekly episodes with the leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world. We're all coming together for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help you be the best that you can be. Click the subscribe button below and share this episode. I'll see you next time.